Good morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm Dave Parker from the Founder Institute, serial entrepreneur as well. Going back to that statement you heard just across the way a little bit ago. Serial means I haven't sold for a big enough multiple yet to retire. Andy and I were talking about that earlier. Been fortunate to be on the sell side of 4 deals, including a company called Classmates.com, which we were talking about earlier. I remember being in a board meeting talking about this little company in the Bay Area called Facebook. And it took me 6 months to get my user ID because I didn't have a .edu extension. And then there's another company called LinkedIn. And so Classmates got sold about 6 years ago, became Memory Lane, and then rumor has it, who knows, maybe they'll go back to Classmates. I think it was a better brand. So you have the Twitter IDs for both Andy and I. Let me walk you through what we're going to talk about today. And then Andy and I are going to tag team a bunch on various topics. And this, by the way, is a workshop for you, not just about us talking. It's really about you. Maybe it won't be about this one. I'll stay close to the mic on this one. So what we're going to talk to you about today is what are investors looking for as a starting point. And we want to give you some context, right? So most of you have this idea, whether it's romantic or ill-conceived, that you should take outside investment. And we may try to talk you out of that, and we may try to encourage you along that path. But you should at least know what investors are looking for. So Andy's going to spend some time talking about that. We're talking about big ideas and big markets. And what in the world are we talking about when we talk about those things? How do you think through those things? We're going to tie that back together with this idea of business models. There are exceptions to the rules that we're going to talk with you about. For example, Twitter still doesn't have a business model, but has a hell of a lot of traction. Those are the exceptions to the rules, but not the rules. We're going to go through the rules with you today. And if you have the Twitter idea, we're happy to help. But we want to help you with some of the rules that go with it. So with those rules, we're going to give you what 7 rules are you should stick to. Andy and I are going to give you some examples, including our own companies and some of our own ideas. And then we're going to hand it over to you and have you do your turn with the tools we're going to give you. So I'll make sure this slides are published on Scribd as well today, so you'll be able to pull down the slides directly. And then you'll do that around the table, and you'll get up and share your ideas with us. And the tables, your peers will give you some feedback, and we'll give you some feedback about big idea, big market, fundable or not fundable. Okay? So that's what you're going to get out of it. That's our goal and our agenda. So rule number 1, don't be afraid to share your dumbass idea with people around the table. Did I say dumb? I'm sorry. Don't be afraid to share your idea with people around the table. Execution is a big part of the challenge of doing a startup, and ideas are cheap. So one thing I'm going to encourage you about is don't lead with an investor, which is, hey, I need you to sign my NDA before I share my killer idea with you. You benefit more from the feedback of the people around your table than the concern about the NDA. So there are exceptions to that rule. Benchmark recently got sued. It's the first time I've heard of that lawsuit in, 20 years that I've been around this thing. So no more, you'll get more benefit from sharing your idea with people around the table than you'll get from not sharing it. And most of you have bad ideas anyway. Really. So why do I say that? Twitter was a pivot. Are you guys familiar with the idea of a pivot? So Twitter did not start off being Twitter. Twitter pivoted to be Twitter. So what's important to realize is when you start with an idea, you don't need to be unduly checked to that idea when the customers are telling you, go do Twitter. Right? This is a really brilliant idea. Now, I probably wouldn't have invested because I would have looked at it and gone, I don't understand. It makes sense, but is there a big market for that? But the point is that was not the idea they started with. And had they been totally committed to that one idea, Twitter would still not be here. So I think they made a good choice. So be willing to change your ideas and look at pivoting. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Andy. Andy's going to talk to you about what investors are looking for and some criteria and context. For those of you who don't know Andy, I'll do a little introduction. So Andy's the CEO of Buddy TV. There's probably 2 what the Valley would call super angels that are investors in Seattle, he and Jeff Entris. And so Andy was one of our mentors for the Founder Institute. And as we were talking about doing this program, and Andy actually happened to be our best top-ranked mentor as well. And he and I got chatting about this idea of doing an ideation boot camp, and I was able to convince Andy to come over and help with that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andy, and he'll take you through what investors are looking for.
Thanks, Dave. So there's a framework of what makes me excited about funding a company, and here's a framework. And like Dave said, there's always exceptions to the rules, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But probably the first thing that captures my attention is the idea, and the idea itself. It's important to a certain extent because it shows how thoughtful you are about your idea. A lot of folks come in with a initial idea. It's not very well thought out, and there's not a lot of discipline behind it. And so what I'm looking for is something that is exciting. It gets my hair up, and I'm excited to hear more about it. It's something that I know a little bit about, which is in the internet technology space. But ultimately, it really is a reflection on how well the entrepreneur has thought out the idea. How big is the market is really important there as well. The second piece that's important to me, and sometimes I will actually do a deal just primarily on this, which is how strong is the team. And the team that is really important to me is on a couple of dimensions. One is how committed are you to the idea? One of the things that I've noticed from some of the successful investments that I've done is that when hard times hit, they don't run away. They actually keep running, and they give themselves a minimum of 2 years. That's really kind of the benchmark that I'm looking for is, hey, the first 6 months you may get zero traction, but how far are you willing to kind of push that boundary? How far are you willing to run through walls to go through that idea to make sure that you're going all the way? A lot of times it may take a pivot or two or three, but at the end of the day, that person really cares about, hey, succeeding and winning, and number two is very, very important. The other thing that is important to me to look at a team is how invested are they as well. A lot of times they're working part-time, or they have a foot still at Microsoft, or they've got another job lined up, or what have you. That's the first sign of danger for me, that as soon as something hard comes up, they're immediately going to jump ship. And so I am looking for how committed are you? Are you actually putting some of your life savings into it? And are you spending some blood, sweat, and tears in the company? The third thing is a scalable product. What's interesting here is, both scalable product and traction is that even if you have a great product, one of the things that I think is a fallacy is a great product will sell itself. There's a lot of great products out there that will never sell because there's not enough thought about how do you get distribution. And so I love the local space. I think local is an interesting space. It's a huge market. But the cost of going after small business owners is so high, it's actually a very, very hard business model without some sort of inherent advantage to going after those local business owners. Do you have a deal with Yellow Pages? Do you have a deal with a Salesforce that can sell your stuff? Do you have an inherently viral model that gets you distribution or a competitive advantage around getting customers? That's what I want to see. Great product is great. I think it's very important. But how are you going to actually get traction? And then when I talk about scalable product, I think one thing that's very important is how thoughtful are you on unit economics? And so when you do sell one product, how much did it cost you to get that customer? And how repeatable is that as well? And so the more that you think about that, one of the most interesting part about history that we're living in today is this opportunity of seeing massive scale with very, very limited costs. And if you have a model like that, that's very, very exciting. So specifically about markets, one of the things that I think is very important is how are you defining your market? And I really, really don't like business plans that come in and they say, hey, you know what, we're going to go from 0 to 10 million in 3 years, and the target market is all teenagers. That just doesn't make any sense to me. What I really want to know is what's the psychological or demographic profile of your specific customer, and once I hit that, here's how I'm going to scale to the other folks. So it may be 12 to 20, but maybe it is females first that are well educated. And then once I nail those, then I'm going to move into the next area. But how are you actually going to define your market? And then ultimately, what is your total market? And so if you did own the market, how big is that market? And so, I'll tell you a couple of pitches that I've seen. I've seen pitches where, hey, we're going to nail the concert hall market. And the concert hall market, in my mind, is not very big. And so maybe it's something that you can do as a small business, but not as a backed angel invested or venture backed business. You have to think about how big your market is and where you want to go with it. Obviously, the larger the market, the more capital and the more angel funded or VC funded it's going to be. A couple other things that you want to ask yourself is who is your competitor? You know, is it established? Do you have a big competitor out there, or is it relatively immature? There's pros and cons to both. Big competitor, it's going to be tough to take them on. If it's a brand new market, is it too early? So a lot of those questions you need to ask and find out. Again, think thoughtfully about your idea, where you are on that spectrum. Market leader versus first mover. You know, I've seen enough Groupon ideas that it makes me a little sick, but you know, there may be some twist out there that I don't know about, but know if you're going to be a first mover, first to market. Again, are you too early, or are you on the cusp of something good and going after it, or are you going after a market leader? How known is the market? And lastly, the most important thing I think is how are you going to go to market? And one of the taste tests that I like to see is, does the startup have a little bit of traction with real customers? And that's a real true test. If you have real traction, someone willing to write even a small check is a big risk piece that you're taking off the table if you're able to do that before you raise financing. So what types of ideas are interesting? And so you're going to have a chance to do this in a little bit, but you know, one of the things is it could be a very simple idea. So, you know, I've got a ton of ideas I'm happy to share with you guys. Everything from crowdsourcing insurance to, you know, retail trip it. You know, a bunch of ideas that I think are very simple, can be explainable. Is it aha for the investor and so forth? Or it could be an intricate idea. There's some ideas that take a little bit of time. I don't think it's necessarily hard if you can't explain it in 10 seconds, but you should be able to explain it where somewhat everybody can understand the business behind it. One of the deals that I'm excited about is Keith Smith's deal. I still have a hard time explaining his business, but it is a really, really interesting business. It's around game mechanics for publishers. And so if you can understand the basics or the idea behind why it's important for publishers and how he makes money, then I think it's a very powerful idea. There's several different types of ideas out there. There's stuff that can change an entire industry. I think those are very hard to do, but at the same time, it's a high payoff. So it may be a smaller percentage chance of success, but a much higher return. Or it may be something that's just maybe incremental, and so you're doing bigger, faster, cheaper. Both are great ways to go after an idea. So again, these are different ways that you can kind of think about your ideas. Three, I would call these kind of last three things kind of fallacies I do see in a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs. One is, hey, you know, if you're passionate about an idea, you should just go for it. I think it should go the other way. I think it's very easy to start a company, very hard to leave a company. And so what you want to have is something that has passion enough for you to go after for at least 2 years, but it needs to be more than just passion. The second thing is ideas, and Dave alluded to this already. Ideas are a dime a dozen, so do share your ideas, but it's more about the execution than it is about the idea itself. And it turns out, I would say, 90% of the time of all the companies I'm involved in, 34 of them, they have all pivoted. And so even if you have a great idea, the idea a lot of times does evolve and change. And so it's more important about execution than it is about the initial idea. And lastly, you know, the product is important as well, but you are building a company. And so if you're talking about long-term sustainable value, I'm a big fan of building something that's sustainable and long-term. And building a product gets you a part of the way there, but you really have to think about, how am I thinking long-term and not just short-term? Because if you're just building a product, a lot of times you turn into a service company, or you might just turn into a very short-term, hey, you know, this is a flash in the pan. Think long-term, how is this actually going to be sustainable? How can I sell a lot more product? How can I build this into a scalable company? And so just a couple of takeaways. I think this is going to be a ton of fun to build ideas. Find an idea that's big, and then go after and do it, and realize that at the end of the day, you have to have commitment. Go after hard, 2 years, and know that you're going to change ideas again. And I think you're going to see a lot of success. It's a ton of fun. Enjoy the journey.
Great. Thanks, Andy. Okay, so I'm going to give you some meat to the process that you can take away with as some standards and benchmarks. One of the things that we hear a lot when people come into the Founder Institute is, I'm going to do the ad model. What are the basic numbers, the blocking and tackling on the ad model? Because someone will go, I've got this thing, but we're going to get 100,000 visitors. It's like, that's not enough. So the information I pulled here for you comes out of, you can look it up on The World According to Karp is his website, Stephen Carpenter. These are from TechCrunch. It was 13 consumer internet models. And I'm going to walk you through these as examples, and like I said, they'll be available on Scribd later today. So your idea has to foot with a business model. So let me be clear on that. You have to have a hypothesis of what your business model will be. In most cases. Twitter, again, is an exception. But for most cases, you at least have to have a hypothesis. If you want to go get a meeting with Andy and say, hey, I've got this great idea, and he says, what's your business model? I go, don't know yet. The answer is, don't meet yet. Right? Because you need to at least have a hypothesis that has some basis in a model. And the last thing is I'll give you some benchmarks that go with it. So here's some examples. These are the 13 models that ranges from search and gaming and media and rental, hardware, payments, audio, and here's some examples with the monetization drivers. And so at Classmates, our business was all about how many email addresses we had. We developed user-generated content that would get you to come to the site and pay for an annual subscription. We had one SKU when I started with Classmates. So it's a $40 SKU. We had 32 million emails. 2.2 million people paid us $40 a year. Quick math, 80 million plus, significant free cash. Now, all of those numbers are the numbers you have to work within for whatever business model you're using. So pick one and then go vet it out because you have to start somewhere. So here's some basics on the benchmarks. If you're going to be in the gaming business, you need 10 million monthly active users with 1.5% conversion and $550 a month. That's the benchmark for the numbers in gaming. If you're down here in hardware, completely different benchmark. So subscription, 1 million uniques, a 1% conversion, or 1% monthly, 40% conversion, 5% paid. So the benchmark numbers are there for you in this research on the web, but go out with a hypothesis of, here's a benchmark. Here's what I know about it. So here's the critical piece about this. If you're like, we're doing an ad-driven model, and my entire market is 1 million people nationally who are people who love pugs. We have an all-pug site, and I'm passionate about pugs. But there's not 1 million people in the US that are passionate about pugs. So even if you wanted to do an ad model, it would never be big enough to matter. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a great hobby, but it does mean it's not a fundable business. So you can have a great business. There's two different businesses in my mind. There's a lifestyle business. It employs you, some people that you like, maybe some family and friends, and gives you a great income. But when you're done, it stops. And then there's a scalable and sellable business, which says, I want to grow this business and scale. And the thing that I loved about Classmates was we made money when we slept. It was a great business. Right? The things that's tough about a services business, to Andy's point, is it doesn't scale. And if you do decide to sell it, you'll get 1 times multiple of revenue. You'll have a 3-year earnout, which really means they're giving you your money in advance to pay them back over the 3-year earnout to sell your business to them. That's not a great multiple. A recurring revenue business can generate between 7 and 12 times in revenue, and to a strategic buyer significantly more. That doesn't mean that a services business or a lifestyle business is bad, but it does mean you need to know what you're expecting going into it. So I wrote a blog post last year about how not to waste 30,800 hours of your life. So, and the reason is the average startup to venture exit is 8 years. During that time, you will work 80 hours a week, or at least that's what you will tell your spouse, because it will be more than that. So if you're going to do that, make sure the idea is big enough to matter. If you're happy with a lifestyle business, awesome. But don't expect it to be a venture-backed business. So those are some numbers. So what does it mean for you specifically? If you're doing commerce, you need 4 million uniques a month with a conversion rate of 10%, with 400,000 buyers with an average spend of $50. So you get the point here. So my total gross margin is $10 million on 20 in sales, and my net gross margin net of marketing is $7 million. So you need to have a hypothesis about how big the market is to at least swag this on the back of a napkin and ask yourself the question and your business partner the question, which is this a big enough idea for us to spend the next 30,800 hours of our life on? So to Andy's point, it's easy to start, it's hard to leave. And from a timing standpoint, what you'll find is there's 3 senses of timing to go into a business. You can go late. So for example, you're the next Groupon competitor of the 470 that are out there. That wave has crashed, in case you don't know it. There's enough competitors already there. So being late to market is hard. You can recover if you have a unique twist on the idea. Being just a little early to market is ideal, but it doesn't happen very often. And the worst one is too early. Too early to market was my first company. We ran a company, we went from 0 to 40 million in revenue in about 4 years. We were a software distributor for online software. It was about the time download was happening with Digital River. And we were just too early to market. And the hard part about being too early is you as the visionary goes, no, they just don't see it yet, and I do. I see around the corner. And the fact is in entrepreneurship and startup, it's seldom a corner. It's just a really long bend, right? Because you're always like, no, just around that corner. And it's like the bend never quite ends. So you need to be aware of how you evaluate the business. Here's the numbers for a subscription model. And again, you can find all of these as examples out on the World According to Carp's site and in TechCrunch. All right, 7 rules. So Andy, let's tag team through these. So what I wanted to do here was just give you some examples of good and bad on some of these rules and how you look at them. Simple ideas win. So one of my rules is that if a customer can't repeat your message, you will not make a sale. So if you walk into somebody and you're like, we do this, and you finish out by them going, I have no idea what Dave just talked about. He must be really smart, though, but I have no idea what he just said. So Andy, can you think of good ideas for where it's simple and bad ideas when it's too complex?
It's a reflection on the target market, too. So if you sell something to your mom, like I tell her, like I invested in a mobile hospitality play, and she had no clue what I was talking about, but I think it's a great idea. But if I told a hotel worker, like a hotel GM, and I told him, hey, this is what I'm interested in investing in, and he gave me the feedback, I would buy that today, that's a great idea. And so the simple idea there was that if you check into a hotel, it's an app that actually helps you be able to order anything you want there, be able to have maps throughout the hotel and what's on TV and all that sort of stuff. So it's perfect if you don't want to talk to any hotel workers.
So one of my favorites in your group is bacon salt.
Yes.
I'm like, not something I would have thought of, but it's pretty simple.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're doing okay.
Salt that tastes like bacon. Yeah.
So revenue streams. One of the rules here is having 5 revenue streams in your hypothesis is a bad idea. So we're going to start with subscription, and we're going to move to advertising. And once we have this, we're going to move to that. No, pick a revenue stream. Again, it's a hypothesis. Pick one. You can't have 7 revenue streams. The complex ones are always bad. And in the midst of trying to pivot, one of the things you'll look at is you'll end up casting about looking for different revenue streams. Not a good option. You need to be able to go out and validate your assumptions. Mm-hmm. Andy talked about naming your customer. One thing I will tell you, a friend of mine started a company that he's about my age, in his 40s, and he was dealing with teens. And one of the things he walked away from that going, oh my gosh, there's no way a guy in his 40s can relate to this and build a product for teens. It's just not possible. One of the things you need to be very cautious of is you need to know your market. And even if you find a great market and you're not in it, you should find somebody on your team as a co-founder to make sure they understand that market. Because if you don't, it's going to be hard for you to build a product for them.
Yeah. Well, one of the exercises I like to do in-house is to actually build a customer profile, the ideal one, name the person, and say, hey, this is Valerie, she's 20, she's educated, she does this, and know that customer so well that you're building a phenomenal product for them. And if you build a phenomenal product for them, then I think that you've succeeded in at least passing one of the tests around this. If
you get a chance to hear T.A. McCann, he's one of our mentors. He started Gist. It was bought by RIM. TA is probably the best person I've ever heard talk on this subject because they named their customer, to Andy's point, and they had pictures up of different customer profiles. And as they built their product, they were looking at it going, is this what this customer really wants? And if the answer is, everybody is my customer, that's a wrong answer, right? It just doesn't work like that. You either don't know enough about your product or your customer, but it's never the case that everybody is your customer. So, small markets. You're going to spend as much time going after a big market as a small market. Small markets suck. It's just a horrible, horrible thing because you get into it and you're like, we can own market share, and the biggest we will ever be if we get 100% of the market is a $10 million business. And the answer is $10 million businesses are okay. But again, if you're going to go after a market, make sure it's big enough to go after. I'm on the board of a company that has dominated its market, and now we're looking for, okay, what else do we expand into? Because we own that market, and we want to be a $50 million company, and we're not going to be that with the product we have. Now, I can leverage that to build into something, but I still need to know what I want to get into. So you've probably seen some small market companies, at least pitched to you for that perspective.
Yeah, there's a ton, and I think that the critical question to always ask is put yourself in the investor's shoes. Is it interesting enough to want to put some money behind it? And a lot of times that question right there is a critical one. It's just not interesting if you just knock it out of the ballpark, and if it's not interesting if you can knock it out of the ballpark, it's not worth investing.
So secret sauce. You guys have heard this idea, and every once in a while you hear this declared as sustainable competitive advantage. So there's no such thing as sustainable competitive advantage in tech. Sorry, you may own a patent on something, which is great as a litigation strategy, but it's not great as a growth strategy. If you can have a competitive advantage for now, then use that competitive advantage as long as you can. But in most cases, the idea of sustainable competitive advantage is really a line that an angel investor is telling you to blow you off because they're like, well, we're looking for sustainable competitive advantage. And the answer is, it's in tech. Name something that's competitive, long-term, years of competitive advantage. Not so much. I mean, even building a fab location that cost $1 billion, there's companies that have money to throw at that. So, but secret sauce is an important component. Andy talked about it in go-to-market. Now, if you look at what Friendster did, or what Classmates did, or what Facebook did, fundamentally they're the same idea. The difference was their go-to-market strategy and how they did that and what the secret sauce was in that. Exclusivity, right? In Classmates, our demographic was 55. It was about people looking backwards, right? In LinkedIn, their demographic was about people in the career looking forward. And Facebook was all about people in college then and now. So very different demographic, how to go to market, but the ideas were fundamentally the same. Hugely different valuations, right? Classmates sold for over $125 million, but both LinkedIn and Facebook now are way in the billions, right? So which one was first? Friendster was first. It went away.
I'll add one here. One of the deals I led is Cheeseburger. I know you guys have seen I Can Ask Cheeseburger. And when I first led the deal, people didn't realize there's a critical insight regarding that site that you would say, hey, isn't it pretty easy to create a cat blog and create humorous posts and get a lot of traffic and so forth? There were actually a lot of sites out there that were trying to drive traffic, and what happened was the critical insight for us was that we were able to get a lot more submissions than anybody else was capable of doing it. So if you're a solo person running a site, you can only come up with so many funny posts before you run out of good stuff. And we had a minimum of 600 submissions a day, which allowed us to always have funny stuff on the homepage. And so we had a sustainable competitive advantage versus anybody else that was creating another funny cat site out there.
So last component here is just be original, right? When you walk into Andy's office to do a pitch, the answer is, we're just like. How are you different? You have to be original in how either your go-to-market has to be different. It's not bad to compare yourself to something, right? We're just like Airbnb for this market, or we're just like that for this market. But be original in the market you're going after. And a Me Too doesn't get funded unless you have an incredible team that has great depth, which is probably not the team that you have right now, right? So something you can go after at a later date may be a different story. So 7 rules to keep in mind. And we're going to use those 7 rules to explain your ideas. So here's, Mike, if you can hand those out. And we're going to hand out these worksheets for you, and then we're going to have you work around the table for a few minutes and brainstorm your ideas. So in your case, this is, you guys have seen Mad Libs on the web. So I want to develop a defined offering, and we're going to go through what these things are, to help a target market solve a real problem with some secret sauce. So let's go through what those things are. So be specific here. A social utility. What? What's that? Versus a mobile app or a commerce site, right? So be specific in what you do. Avoid buzzwords. I bet you got lots of good stories on this one. So there's, you know, you've come out of Microsoft and you speak a particular language. And you walk away and I say, how'd that pitch go? And you go, it was great. They loved us. And they walk away and go, I have no idea what that person was talking about. So you need to avoid buzzwords. And this is the test for you as you write out your ideas on this page to see does it meet those things. This is the best site you have ever seen to do this. No one else in the world has ever done what we're doing. Really? Avoid the superlatives. Go with what the facts are. So there's a couple of rules. One of the things I learned in my first business is where there's mystery, there's margin. And where there's no mystery, there's no margin. So I was in the distribution business. The price of Microsoft software was a commodity. Being in a business that is a commodity business where you drive basis points instead of margin points, if you don't know what basis points are, ask your neighbor later. When you're talking about, I never want to be in a business that has basis points for its margin, right? Those are hundredths of a percent, right? So avoid buzzwords, avoid superlatives. You're not the best in something. State what you are and be simple about it. Audience, you can take this one. You're passionate about this one.
Absolutely. So as you think about who your target audience is, again, I would encourage you to think about who specifically, and think with a lot of discipline around that. It's not just 15-year-olds. It's 15-year-olds that have X, Y, and Z. Think about who that is, and you know, I like the artists and musicians, Unsigned Alternative Band. That gives a lot of substance into how you're going to delight that customer.
So the last thing there on the buyer, the last bullet point, is you need to know how you're going to sell it, as well as what you're going to build. Mm-hmm. Who is the buyer within the organization that's going to make this decision to actually purchase your product, if it's a B2B play versus a consumer play? How are you going to sell it? How long is the sales cycle? This goes back to footing your numbers in your plan. If your sales cycle is in a product that takes 2 years to sell because you're like, we're selling to the government and it's a huge product, but the sales cycle is 2 years long, but when we sell it, it's $1 million. Okay, right? That's not a bad thing. Make sure you have enough runway to do it, and you recognize how long it's going to take you to sell that product. And some of you have been at startups like that where the fact is that the product was done, but the sales cycle was so long, the company just ran out of runway, right? And that will happen if you don't know how long your sales cycle is. So know who the buyer is at those things, and then go out and figure out who they are. Problem. Are you fixing a problem? Is it clear? Now, I use the word clear a little bit tongue-in-cheek, because to me, on all of my ideas, they're always clear. But if you edited my content, you'd be like, Dave, that doesn't make sense at all. I'm like, but it's clear to me. And this is why you're in a table in a round, is somebody can look at you and say, I don't have the slightest idea what you just said. What do you really mean? And they can ask you that question. So viable revenue. You said you at least have to have a hint at it. You need to have a hypothesis to it. Okay? All right, secret sauce. You talked a little bit about that one as well, but because you've seen there's more in your portfolio than I've done in this category.
Yeah, so the secret sauce could be a variety of things. One of the things that I think is a really interesting piece of secret sauce is customer acquisition. So what is your go-to-market strategy that makes you more unique than the other person? Because you can actually compete your competitors solely on customer acquisition. I think that's interesting. The other pieces are, like the secret sauce of the cheeseburger. There's a secret sauce to a know-how. So if you know something more deeply than anybody else, that definitely is secret sauce. So there's a variety of flavors of secret sauce, but really
So
what's
team,
going to give you.
I would add too.
Yep.
If you have a team that we just know this market segment better than anybody knows this market segment, that's a secret sauce. Speed is a competitive advantage, right? We're just faster than and can continue to be faster than. But you need to talk about the idea of the secret sauce is what is it you bring that's unique to it, right? This is not, by the way, a spot. This is a spot where as you work around the tables, if you don't have one, you need to come back and figure out what yours is, not try to create one, right, on the fly. Because when you go and pitch that to an investor, what will happen is most won't tell you that it was a lame idea. They'll go, it was really great meeting you, and I'll give it some consideration, which really means I have no interest in this, and I never want to see you again. Right? So you need to learn to make sure that you have good feedback from the people around you so that they're giving you honest feedback. All right, so here's your turn. The worksheets you have in front of you over the next 12 minutes, so I'm going to give you actually about 10 minutes to write it out yourself, and then about 5 more minutes to just talk it through with the people at your table. So write out your idea. If you're not currently working an idea, ask somebody next to you how you can help them. Right? And write out your idea, write out the problem you're solving, write out the secret sauce, and then my question for you is, are you answering these things? And then when you're done writing those out and you're done socializing it with your team, Andy and I are going to walk around and interview folks who want feedback on it from both your peers and from us about, what do you think about this idea? Should I give the next 30,800 hours of my life to this? All right? Ready? Talk to you in 10 minutes. All right. For the next 20 minutes or so, what we're going to do is get your guys's, listen to your guys' pitches. And hey, Andy, why don't I'll have you go to this mic since the other mic's not working. And I'm going to walk around, and if you're brave enough to give, and again, keep in mind, this is not about doing a fundraising pitch. This is just about explaining your idea, right? So pitch boot camp, we do later, right? Start with the ideation boot camp now. Right? Let's make sure you have a good idea before you do a pitch. So what I'm going to ask Andy to do is give you, I don't know if that one's working or not, is we're going to ask you to give your idea, and then we'll take some feedback from the room. We're going to start off with this feedback, right? And then Andy and I will give you our feedback specific to other pitches we've heard and things you should be aware of going in the market, okay? First hand up.
Also, I speak to the whole room.
All right. So I can keep a timer.
Right,
is it short?
Sure I get this right. All right. We are developing an application management solution for the private cloud to help small and mid-sized enterprise IT admins manage their infrastructure applications like SQL and SharePoint for the private cloud. And we're going to do that by supporting multiple cloud providers. It's a lot of IT admin jargon.
Okay. Those of you in the room, what's the feedback on these things? Go ahead. What was your feedback?
It's too much jargon. It sounds like the only thing that I was drawn to was cloud.
Yeah, well, that's why we put the cloud inside there.
Someone thinking all that jargon, something would make it easier to do things.
Okay. So I'm developing, so we got a target market. Your target market was?
IT admin, small to medium business IT admins.
Okay. And the problem you're solving is?
We're going to make an application management solution now.
And the problem you're solving is? I know what you're making. What's the problem you're solving?
Management of enterprise applications.
Oh.
Infrastructure applications or management of SQL and SharePoint servers.
Okay. And the secret sauce is?
We have the team, but I didn't mention that there, but we're going to support multiple cloud platforms.
Okay, I heard you mention that part. Andy, what feedback do you have for him?
You have to know your audience, and so if you're talking to an angel that doesn't have a good understanding of that, the way I would break it down is you got to tell a story, and so make it real to that person and put them kind of first person in that story. That's how I would do it. But I understand what you're trying to do, but a lot of people may not.
So from a criteria perspective, I think it's generally a simple idea. We were talking about this at our table. One of the things you need to realize is and this is true for me in my deal, right? When I write content for the front page of my site, I go out to people and I say, this is what we do. And then I go, by the way, go to my site and tell me what we do, right? Because it's my site. And the reason my blog is called Forest Trees Bark is because Andy and I get to see the forest for you guys, and you get to see the bark on the tree, because it's like, it's right here. I can't tell you what I do. I can't remember, right? But all of us are that way with our own ideas, which is why you need to share them, because you're like, we were talking about your guys' in the application you're building to help do search for small and medium business. Small and medium business is one of those, it's a pothole, right? What you mean by small and medium business may be totally different than what Andy means by small and medium business. So you better define it. And if you're doing small and medium business because there's 400 million in the US, you better pick a vertical. We do this for restaurants. And what we do for restaurants is so killer that every restaurant we talk to says it's an awesome idea and we should do it. Right? But small and medium business, it's a big market. It's a big market that's incredibly hard to penetrate. And the reason is because they're all over the map. So easily explainable, not. So I'd go with Andy's recommendation there is turn it into a story. Again, we're not doing a pitch boot camp. It's not about fundraising. It's about your mom being able to explain it, right? And for years, my mom was like, it doesn't matter, honey. I just love you. That means your idea is not simple enough for her to explain, right? So it's a funny euphemism. Okay, who's next? So let's go here.
Oh, sorry.
So introduce yourself for us.
Hi, my name is Neeti Mehta, and I'm starting a startup called Friends Be Fit. And the idea is the service offers you to work out at home using a web video conference with a live trainer and your friends. The target audience is working moms with young kids less than 5 years old. The problem that I'm trying to solve is moms who are working spend 8 to 9 hours a day at work and then don't have time to go to the gym because you can only leave a kid at the daycare for 10 hours a day. So you generally want to work out when the kid's sleeping or doing something at home. And this allows you to do that. And the secret sauce is it's kind of a new idea. There are a few players who are small out there. So I think if I build it right with the right angles, I may be able to get it.
Okay. So general feedback. Oh, Andy, I'll tell you what, we're going to run out of time if I do it that way. So I'm just going to get your feedback from that one. What do you think?
I think I understood everything. So great job on that. As a quick investor, the two things that I would ask is, one is, I don't know how many moms would seek out that product, so I would want to know how you're going to come after them. And then two, I would be very curious how much they're willing to pay for that product. So those are the two things.
Okay. So a little bit of work on the secret sauce. You dove into competition, but it's kind of like and again, have a hypothesis, right? You're starting with an understanding of what's the hypothesis about why you could be good at it. All right, over here. So one in the back. So you don't need a mic? Go for it.
I'm Tommy the Pond Guy. I own a company called Serenity Falls and Water Gardens. We're a full landscape service that specializes in water features. What we're creating is the Pond Store. Pond Store is one-stop shop design, offers supplies. We're targeting the do-it-yourself homeowner, the one who doesn't want to pay $5,000, $10,000 out on your landscape. They want to do it themselves. What we're solving is we're saving them $5,000 to $10,000. They're getting to enjoy it themselves. They get what they want, what they ask for. And the secret sauce is where our company is a nationally award-winning design and installer and author of water features and landscaping. So they will get our expertise step by step. We'll walk them through it. They can purchase all their supplies, everything through our store.
Okay. Andy?
I love it. Great. Yeah.
So the only thing I'd add to it is just, again, this is one of those, you're close to your market, so you have an understanding of how you're going to get customers and how you're going to acquire customers. Because I don't know your market, I'm assuming you do. Go ahead and throw that in, and this is how we get customers that are unique, or this is what customers are looking for. We're going to build a configuration tool that helps them figure out what they actually want. And so it's, again, when you're close to your market, it's tough for other people who go, and they're going to go like this, right? Yeah, he knows his stuff. I have no idea. So you need to take the chance to explain, and as we were talking at our table at the start, if what you want to communicate to somebody is, if you understood the market the way I understood the market, this is why you'd be excited about it, right? Because you have unique knowledge to it. Okay, over here. Yep.
Hi, my name's Tony Huss, and my idea is to build a website that sells high-end collectible music and books to serious collectors. So right now you can go to eBay and you can search and you can go to Gem for albums, or you can go to ABE Books for books. But if you try to put in something and find, for serious collectors, they have to sort through so much information that they have a hard time finding it. So I would just narrow it down to items in the $100 on up range, and then individual sellers would post on our site, and we'd get a commission.
A couple of things. One is I just don't. I'm not buying the target market really well. I just think that my personal opinion is I think that they have a way of doing it right now, and the collectors have a great way of doing it, and you have to be significantly better than what their current product is doing. So that would be my first question is, like, do you have really great secret sauce there? And it's a network effect. So if you don't have sellers, it's hard to get buyers and vice versa. So it's very, very, in my opinion, very, very hard. And so I would think very hard about what the secret sauce is and what are you bringing to delight that specific identifiable market you're targeting.
Okay, so let me give a quick clarifier here too. Would you guys rather have honest and candid feedback, or would you rather let us run with an idea for a year and a half before you pivot? Oh, okay, I just thought I'd check, because somebody's going to walk away going, Andy was a little hard on them. This is not really fair. No, we'd rather give you honest feedback now than let you go a year and a half and go, I had this idea for the last 6 years. So differentiating between you and eBay is going to be an important factor of that, right? So how are you going to differentiate between you and eBay? How are you going to acquire customers uniquely? What do you think? When your comparison is an established player in the market, you need to have some data that goes with, how much different can you be? Are you guys familiar with the idea of a minimum viable product? Okay, so in the tech side, and when we talk about this from a product standpoint, an MVP is what's the minimum product I have to ship to prove that customers would buy it? And how much will it take you to build that? And that MVP may be a proof of concept application that takes you very little cash, but the idea is you need to know, is that $100,000 or $2 million, right? But it takes it from concept to actual, okay? All right, a couple more and we'll wrap up. So I'm over here, I'll go here first.
Hi, my name's Ryan. I was wondering if any of you have ever been upset when you got to Greece with your family and you couldn't use your phone to communicate with the hotel that you were trying to contact and get to, or as an international business traveler, if you have ever been upset when you get to a specific place and you can't see your emails or communicate with the customers that you're trying to meet with because you don't have their contact information on your phone. Well, I'm developing a kiosk to help international travelers, business and tourists, solve the problem of using your personal phone in an international market. And that creates an easy, viable, convenient, cheap product that allows you to use your personal phone device. It's an international cell phone kiosk, and that's it.
I can identify with the problem, so I would give you a check mark on the problem. I would say the defined offering is not clear to me. So what am I as an international business traveler really going to get? I wasn't sure if it's going to be another phone that's going to copy my contacts, or if it's the phone. I need to have a very, very clear, defined offering. And then the target audience, again, it'd be interesting to know what your secret sauce there is for that target audience. Are you going to create these deals? Do you have these deals in place with the hotels that people are staying at? And so those are what I would be more clear on that. But understand the problem very, very clear.
So the other thing is if you're going to tell a story, and it's not generic enough to 90% of the room, make it personal. Right? This is what happened to me when, right? I haven't been to Greece. I've been to Italy a bunch, but I've never been to Greece. Have I had a problem in Greece? I've never really had a problem in Greece before. So what you did is you're narrowing your market really fast rather than saying, here's what happened and here's the problem it represents. Just simplifies it, right? And when in doubt, more is just more. More is not better, right? More is just more.
So start with less and go from there. Okay, last one.
Well, thank you. I am developing gourmet barbecue pellets from fruit wood and fruit waste for any barbecue aficionado, helping them improve and excite their cooking experience with completely unique and tantalizing new ingredients.
Okay, I know what you do, and I have a Traeger, so I will buy from you. So, Andy, what's your feedback?
I like it. The only question I have is I just don't know that market as much as I should. I really enjoy barbecue, so again, the secret sauce there would be interesting, and maybe describing the food that I would get out of this experience would be really useful, helping me visualize that more.
So context would be the other thing that was helpful. This market is this big. There's this many players in the market. Here's why we're unique. Because, again, you understand, you guys are close to your own markets really well. So help us understand your market. We'll help you get, keep in mind, especially if you're going to pitch Andy, what you really want, have you ever written a check on the first meeting? Maybe once? Yeah, maybe. Out of thousands of pitches, you've written a check once on the first meeting. So what's your agenda with Andy if you're going to go pitch him? Get the next meeting. Right? So you want to give them enough information and then stop talking to say, Andy, what did you think of my idea? Right? Versus if you don't give Andy a chance to talk, you probably won't get the next meeting. So, all right, a couple last slides for you just to go through. Here's our contact information. Feel free to connect with us at any point. The Founder Institute's a program that I'll walk you through a few details of, and Mike left a flyer on the middle of your table. The Founder Institute is a 16-week entrepreneur program that walks you through everything from ideation to fundraising. It's taught by about 40 mentors, including Andy, including office hours every week, and including Monday night meals. The program is $995. It's a $50 application fee, and there's a 3.5% of your company that goes into a pool, and the pool is divided three ways. It doesn't go to the institute. The pool is divided amongst your peers, so you have a CEO group amongst your peers. The pool goes to the mentors, so Andy actually has a stake in your company, and the pool goes to the institute. So if you're interested in that, go to fi.co/join/NWEN. And here's an example. Dan Shapiro, you're going to hear this afternoon. Andy, you just did. Some great mentors, about 35 to 40 mentors every semester. And where'd Caitlin? Oh, there's Caitlin. Come on up here, Caitlin. The last thing is, if you are interested in enrolling in the Founder Institute program, there is an application process, and you do have to take a test. But if you do, and you're in the first 10 people who we accept in the application process, you have a free annual pass to the Seasons Pass to NWEN. So, Caitlin, here's that.
All right. Thank you so much. The Seasons Pass, let's talk about that for a minute. NWEN does about 60 to 70 events a year. So when you think of that breaking down, that's a lot of events per year. What the Seasons Pass is, it covers the admissions fee to all of those events. One excluded, which is Entrepreneur University. You guys are all lucky enough to be here today. But the Seasons Pass is great to take advantage of, especially if you're in that early stage, you're wanting to gather a lot of information. We've got a lot of the similar mentors, a lot of programs around education. We'd love to see you all there. Seasons Pass, let's get you down that road. Let's get it paid for ahead of time, and we'll schedule you in. So that's it. Thank you.
All right, I'll flip it back to this. We'll get you out of here a few minutes early before your next one. And feel free to come up and talk with us with any questions. Thanks very much. The slides will be on Scribd. Do a search for Ideation Bootcamp later today. It'll be on Scribd. Okay?